delegate, I'm sorry. Candidates. So just to let you know, we had gotten a message at late this evening that Mr. Howard was not able to attend. So we will have just Ms. Buiniskis. If you have any questions for Mr. Howard, you can get on his Facebook page or email and send your questions to him. So to start with, we're going to start with the council candidates, and we'll go in alphabetical order to make this all fair. So I believe that's going to be Shannon.
Fourth letter.
So thank you so much for your time.
Takes a couple letters to get to. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I want to start by saying thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy evenings and week to come down here and spend this evening with us. Thank you to the neighbors of Mayo Peninsula for organizing this. I think this is a really important part of the process. And then also to the Legion for your hospitality and allowing the use of this space. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do this without your hospitality. So I am a hometown girl. I was raised in Riva by my parents, Bob and Karen Live, who showed me through example that when you see a problem in your community and you know that you have the capability of making an impact and having a difference, that you have an obligation to step in, to step up, and to get involved. And I'm very grateful for that example that they set for me, because they set me on the road to really a lifetime of service and to leadership that has really become the core of who I am. I am a mom. I've got 2 kids with my husband. They're enrolled in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And I was the leader of the nonpartisan parent coalition that successfully fought to get our schools reopened and our kids back in the classroom. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a direct-to-consumer sales business that I built to the top 1% in my industry within my first 3 years of business. And I'm a Marine Corps spouse, retired. Through all of my husband's years of service, I ran the Marine Corps Family Readiness programs with every unit. I did that through 5 deployments, 2 of which were to combat. My role as the leader of those programs was to advocate on behalf of Marine families to make sure that they receive the resources, the flexibility, and the freedoms that they need in order to live fulfilled lives while facing really, unimaginable challenges, things that I honestly couldn't have imagined when I was a teenager going to South River High School here. I always wanted to, when I left high school, this was a much smaller place back in 1994. Everything was smaller here in Anne Arundel County, and I really wanted to get out and spread my wings. I went to college at Bucknell University, where I graduated from honors, and it's after college that I married my husband, who was in the Marines at the time. And that experience really did allow me to spread my wings. I've had such diverse experiences. I've seen how things are done in so many other places, and we've had really marvelous adventures. But this has always been my home. During every deployment, between every PCS move, this is where I came home to. And so this was a no-brainer when my husband retired in 2019 that we were going to come back here and raise our kids in Anne Arundel County. So why am I running for this position? Why am I getting involved in local politics? What I see is that after the past 4 years, our county is not in a better position today than we were 4 years ago. We're paying some of the highest taxes. Our budget has grown by over $300 million. We have increased violent crime rates. Our police force is struggling with record low recruitment and also record low retention. Within our public schools, which is the majority of our county council budget, we have a teacher shortage, we have a bus driver shortage, we have a crossing guard shortage. Within our 3rd to 5th graders, only a quarter of those students are proficient in English and language arts. Today we had 97 buses that didn't run. 31 of those were bus routes within District 7. And we have about 20 kids approximately out in Lothian who still haven't been to a single day of school this year because they don't have transportation. Our drainage easements along our roadsides are flooded, which adds, not only do we have traffic flooding our roads, but we also have water flooding our roads. I believe that we can do better. I'm here to offer better leadership. Together with my local roots and with my lifetime of leadership experience, I believe I have what it takes to really focus on the challenges that we are facing and to lead us in a positive direction. We have to move beyond partisan politics to find creative, innovative, common sense solutions so that we can fight to make this place a better place to live, to work, to raise our families, and also to retire. I promise to show up every day and fight for you. I will be your advocate, and I will work to make sure that this does become a better place to live for our future, for our children's future, and for all of our generations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Tingle. And now we have Shawn Livingston, who is the Democrat candidate for our county council seat. Shawn.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Livingston, running for county council in our district. For those of you that aren't totally familiar with our district, although I think probably most of you are because you're obviously engaged citizens, District 7 is all South County, Edgewater, Davidsonville, Crofton, a little bit of Gambrels. Also, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's always an honor wherever I go that people come out and want to listen to all of us talk. I think it's really cool and I really appreciate it. A little about me, I grew up a little bit south of the Anne Arundel County line in Calvert County, less than a mile from the Patuxent River. My wife grew up in Lothian and we were high school sweethearts. I work at the Key School across the water. My wife is a nurse at Anne Arundel Medical Center. We have two little kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we live in London town. Now the story that I always tell, it actually sounds a lot like Shannon's now that I've heard it, is everywhere I went with my mom, whether it was a wedding, a community event, a church event, she would find the person in charge and she would say, hey, I'm here with my boys, how can we help? And we got there early and we would stay late and we were always helping. And I learned at a pretty young age that that's the way that I wanted to do life. Even though it wasn't always fun, I knew it's how I wanted to do my life. It's why I work at a church, it's why I work at a school, it's why I worked for a family business, and it's why I married my wife, a nurse, because we have similar values. This is what we do. We go places, we ask how we can help, we listen to the answer, then we roll up our sleeves, and we get to work. So as I've been, or before I got into the race, I was asking a question, how can I help? What's a role that I can play in Anne Arundel County? And my wife being a nurse, I saw how much the decisions made on the local level affected families every day. When decisions were made, I knew that was going to mean that Rachel was going to have to work longer days. She was going to be gone more. That she was going to come home and she wasn't going to be able to touch the kids until she had taken a shower. And so I saw that firsthand, and that's a way that I can help. I can help make decisions that respect our medical workers. After I started, we had, in my neighborhood, London town, our second tornado in 1 year. I was at Key School that day with my 2 kids, and they sent us home because a tornado was coming. So we came home. Not 5 minutes after we were in our house, the tornado went through our neighborhood. It went through our neighborhood 3 blocks from my house. So our power went out, and I was like, kids, let's go see what happened. We go outside, and just complete devastation. I actually know personally, I know 2 families that just got back into their houses like a month ago. And I'm going, wow, I want my kids to be able to grow up here and live here and call this their home, but if we're going to start having tornadoes every year, I don't know about that. And I know we can't solve the climate crisis in the county council, but we do have a part to play. So that's another way I can help. I can support legislation that protects our environment. I live in London town. It's not exactly the Mayo Peninsula, but we have a lot of water. And guess what? Our roads flood a lot. The storms are getting worse. The rising water is affecting our roads. And I know that's like that all over the peninsula, both the peninsulas in the district. And that's another way I can help. I can support legislation that works on shoreline mitigation, that makes sure that all the phases of 214 happen over the next few years. So here's what I said. I'm running for 3 reasons primarily. More than this, obviously, but 3 reasons. First, I want to make sure that we're focusing on smart growth, prioritizing the people who already live in our communities so that we can ensure that infrastructure and development are happening in the right ways and in the right places. I want to make sure that we're supporting our schools so that our teachers are honored, our class sizes are reduced, and our kids can engage with a world-class education. And finally, we need to be supporting initiatives that protect and restore our environment so that our waterways are clean, our farms can flourish, and our people can live happy and healthy lives so that we can make sure that the Mayo Peninsula is still the Mayo Peninsula in 50 years. So why am I doing this? I'm not doing this for a political notch on my belt or for my next political aspirations. I'm doing it because it's the way that I was raised by my parents. I'm doing this because I want to make sure this community is the best place it can be for my family and my neighbors. Over the past few years, we've seen a lot of progress, especially when it comes, to all those issues that I just mentioned. We've seen a lot of progress. And I want to make sure that that continues. I want to make sure that the people of our district are heard, that they have someone that's going to listen, roll up their sleeves, and get to work.
Thank you, Shawn. All right, we are starting our questions, and we will give each one 3 minutes. So we start with first, how would you strengthen Anne Arundel County's implementation of the critical area principles to further protect shoreline? We each get 3 minutes to answer the question, and then we'll pass it to the next delegate. Go with you first. You mean read again?
Yes. Or if I can read the cards.
Visual learners.
Basically, how would you strengthen the critical areas to start saving our shoreline?
So we have, rising waters all around us here in Anne Arundel County. It's not just affecting the Mayo Peninsula. We have another peninsula within District 7, and obviously we have an immense amount of shoreline countywide. This is a very real issue. Whether you can debate the how and the why of it happening all day long, but the reality is this is happening. I believe one of the things that we need to make sure that we do is that we are planning effectively financially for the future. And that means having an adequate reserve fund, that we are ready and have the resources available to do the mitigation, to do the planning, to do the proactive steps that are necessary to protect our shoreline and the properties that are on those shorelines.
And that's you, Shawn.
So when I read critical area, I'm reading that as the sensitive areas of our county. And what's sensitive on the Mayo Peninsula? The whole thing, right? We have, we've seen over the last few years just a lot of building, right? And unfortunately, we've continued to see that. We've seen forests leveled. And then in addition to that, we see the rising waters. So how do we protect our shorelines? There's two things we need to do, right? There's mitigation, because it's already happening. So we need to make sure we're supporting legislation that supports resilience, shoreline resilience. We need to be partnering with organizations like the Arundel Rivers Federation to make sure that we're using our resources wisely, not necessarily using the county's resources, but having organizations get grants and use their money. We also need to make sure that there's just so many things we can do, right? We need to make sure that we're enforcing the stormwater laws. Also, Senator Sarah Elfreth passed an awesome bill about stormwater management, but that will take time to really start affecting our district. So I think that we can look at it as a county to beef up our laws on the county level to make sure that stormwater management is, a little background, the laws were made over 30 years ago, so a little antiquated because a lot's changed in 30 years when it comes to water. So that's one thing we can do. We can beef up our forest conservation laws. We can make sure that we're not giving variances to things that shouldn't happen, which is a lot of things on the Mayo Peninsula. And then we've got the infill lots. I just have a lot of ideas. So I think basically what I'm saying is I'm talking about things I've heard when I'm knocking doors. There's a lot we can do to help protect the Mayo Peninsula, and we just need somebody that's going to listen and then make sure they vote that way. So.
You guys are quick, you haven't used your 3 minutes. Okay, so if elected, what are you going to do about the ever increasing real estate tax and wastewater bills? Shawn, you went last. I mean, you guys decide how you want to go back and forth.
Go back and forth.
Okay, so again, what are you going to do about the ever increasing real estate tax and wastewater bills?
Okay, so ever increasing real estate tax, that was first, so we'll take that first. The real estate tax was raised slightly with this past administration, but since then has been brought down a little bit. So I think that we need to recognize that. Obviously, we don't want taxes, but we also want services. So I think we need to continue to try to lower those taxes. One thing that's happened, and I think we're all feeling this, is the value of our property has gone up, and that's making our taxes more, even though the percentage of the tax hasn't gone up. And that's hard because we all want the value of our property to improve. So I'm not going to say, I'm going to work on keeping the value of our property down. But I do think that we need to work with what we have. We need to manage our budget wisely so that there is no need for us to raise the property taxes anymore, and hopefully can continue to lower them as years go on. And the second part of that question was wastewater management bills. Right. I'm actually not familiar, I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Just our wastewater bills have increased.
Oh, wastewater bills. I was thinking like legislation.
No, sorry. Our
Wastewater.
bills have increased.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so wastewater, obviously, a lot has happened with wastewater when it comes to Mayo Peninsula. We no longer have to worry about pollution a lot of ways because we're shipping that stuff over to Annapolis, and that comes with a cost. As far as that increasing, I'm honestly not too familiar with how that has been. I haven't seen that on my bill. It's been the same for 6 years. But regardless, I think the same thing. We need to do what we can, manage our budget wisely so we don't have to increase them anymore.
Thank you for the question. So when it comes to taxes, since the current administration entered office, our taxes in Anne Arundel County were originally raised 12%. This past budget, there was a 1% reduction. I don't personally consider raising taxes by 12 and subtracting 1 a significant tax cut. And I do support a further reduction in our property tax bills. Something that is particularly important to me when out talking to many of our community members. I've talked to a lot of seniors, and there's been a recurring theme when talking to our seniors, and it's been about their ever rising property tax rates. The bills are coming in, and in some cases, the cost of their property tax has become more than their original mortgage on their home was. In other cases, it's become a 13th mortgage payment. That's every year. And so I do think that we have to look for creative ways with our county code to find property tax savings, particularly for our seniors, particularly those moderate income levels. To find ways to make this a more affordable place for them to continue to live. Because what is happening is that we are losing our seniors. And I see our seniors more than just a tax base. To me, our seniors are vibrant members of our community. This is a generation who knows our legacy. They know our past. They're our volunteers. They're our child care. They're just vibrant and amazing members of our community. And I think we have to do what we can to help those who want to stay in their homes be able to continue to afford to do so. When it comes to wastewater bills, I can say that, yes, I've seen that in my household as well. I actually have talked to some of our residents it's been really unusual spikes that they have seen in their wastewater bills where all of a sudden there's this jump and they don't get calls back. when they try to get customer service, they try to get rereads, and they're not getting answers. So one of the things I do think we need to look at when it comes to wastewater is customer service, making sure that we're following through on those inquiries, to make sure that customers have those answers as to why their bill has gone up. Is there perhaps a leak in the house that they don't know about? Was there a misread? Anything along those lines I think could be incredibly beneficial to help stem the ever rising cost of living here in Anne Arundel County.
You guys are thorough. All right, we're going to pivot to an education question. Do you agree with the Maryland blueprint for education and understand the financial obligations and burdens that it entails? A $30.8 billion increase over the next 10 years. Where will that money come from? Yep. Can you read it down?
No, I'm
Would you
good.
like to have the part?
Sure. All right, so do I agree with the Maryland Blueprint for Education? I think that bill puts way too much regulatory and mandated burden on our communities, and it takes the decision-making power away from the local communities to focus on the funding levels and the appropriate type of education that those community members would like to make. Now, this is County Council. I can't change the blueprint for education. And that is something that's going to happen at the state level. And I imagine this question will be asked to our candidate for House of Delegates. But that is my personal position. Do I understand the cost? Where does that money come from? That's one of my concerns when we're talking about the blueprint, is that that cost is going to come down to us, the local taxpayer. The county does have a responsibility. It's mandated through the blueprint to pay a certain share of that, of those educational mandates. And that, as you know, in Anne Arundel County, the majority of our county budget is already spent on Anne Arundel County Public Schools. This past year, in fact, the budget that was just passed, our Board of Education received a 14% increase year-over-year funding. And I don't know about you, but I didn't get a 14% raise this past year. I can't remember the last time my family did receive a 14% raise. And so I do have concerns about, where is that money going to come from? How are we going to shoulder this burden as a community? And how are we going to make it all work?
All right, so like Shannon said, this is a state mandated bill. And as far as do I support it, education is of utmost importance to me. I have 2 little kids. I'm the son of 2 public school teachers. My wife is a nurse educator at the hospital. I'm a children's pastor of the church. Education is really important. So I think that we need to be putting as much money as we can into education. Now, the state mandated bit is going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and we have to find ways, and we're going to have to be creative. As Shannon said, concerned about where it's going to come from. I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I do think that we need to continue exploring ways that we can bring money into the education system. Just to be vague, but you should know where I'm going with this, there are probably going to be some new industries entering Maryland soon, and they can be taxed in a way that could support our schools, for example. So being creative with how we can bring money into the pool, specifically for schools. So how will we support it? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that, but we do know we have to find a way, so we'll have to get creative.
Thank you. These next question is, should the county have a development ceiling, like X number of new homes construction per year? Shawn, you went first this time.
I think I'm gonna say, I don't think so. I think that we have laws in place that will limit development. We just need to make sure that those are enforced. We need to make sure that we're not giving out variances. We just need to make sure that our laws are being followed. Building is fine if it's happening in the right place, in the right ways. And it's helping people. So I don't know if we had stronger laws in some areas, and if we were making sure they were enforced, I don't see why we would need a cap on building, because it would happen because we already have those laws on the books. So I think the heart of that question though is, how do we make sure things aren't getting built where they're not supposed to? And I kind of alluded to those. I think we need to make sure we're enforcing those laws and that we are tightening up some of those. So, for example, the adequate public facilities laws, they're quite old, and they don't really work for the Mayo Peninsula anymore, in my opinion. So we need to explore how can we change those to make sure development's happening where it's supposed to.
So a development cap, no, that is not something that I believe that we need in this county. But let's talk about development. Development really comes down to, I think the reason why this is such a hot button topic in our community, and to be honest, it's a hot button topic in really every community that I've lived in over my husband's career. This is something that people are genuinely concerned about. And the reason why is because what it comes down to is it's a quality of life issue. Development affects the way you're able to live your life on a daily basis. How much time does it take you to get to work, to get to the grocery store? How quickly can emergency services get to you? And when that happens, when you do need them, how many kids are in the classroom? What's your student-teacher ratio? These are all quality of life issues, and development directly impacts them. And so what I see when when we're frustrated with development, myself included, is that it's not the development. The development isn't the boogeyman. It's our response as government to that development. Are we keeping pace? Can our roads support it? Can our schools handle it? Do we have enough teachers in the classroom to teach those children? Where is our closest fire station? Where's the closest police station? What are those response times? I think there are lots of ways to properly address development. Are we protecting our environment? Do we have those proper regulations in place to make sure that we're not destroying the habitat around us? Let's be honest, our habitat, the environment here, it's one of the reasons that we all live here. This is a beautiful place to be. So we have to make sure that those that we're responding as a community and as a government, to make sure that those things are in place to address the quality of life issues that are a result of development. And I think that's how we go about facing this challenge, not by putting an arbitrary number on this number of houses or this many buildings can be built in this certain time frame. It's about proper response from the government.
Thank you much. This is a little bit of environment and development kind of thrown together, and it's specifically for some people in this audience. What would you do to help the neighbors in Ponder Cove that flood from the Selby stormwater? There's, as we all know also, we have what we affectionately call Lake 214. In the winter time, it is a, ice rink. So we do have some big problems down here with flooding on the roads, and development's not helping it. Environment's not, it's getting worse with more storms. So what would you do to help neighbors, in particularly Ponder Cove's gotten hit very hard? So you're first.
So I will be 100% honest. I am not personally specifically aware of that exact issue in Ponder Cove. Whoever asked the question, I encourage you, I would love to learn more about those specifics, so please talk to me directly afterwards, because I would love to dig my fingers into that a little bit more. I'm going to give some hypotheticals, so to speak. I imagine when we're dealing with flooding, typically it's caused by one of two things. And on this peninsula, I've seen it happen both ways. One, we have drainage swales that are not always properly maintained, and it causes blockages, and that causes flooding in neighborhoods, in front of businesses, in front of private residences, and on 214. Creates the ice rinks, it creates the flooding, becomes impassable, it's incredibly dangerous. So that is the one way that flooding happens. The other way that I've seen flooding happen is when it's coming in. It's coming in from the rivers, it's coming in from the bay, whether that be through a storm event or it's because of a high tide, the perfect storm when both of those things happen at once. In that case, the mitigation measures need to be put in place to try and reverse and to stem that flow. When you're talking about block drainage swales, obviously it's making sure that we get DPW out, getting those swales cleaned properly so that water can flow. And so those would be the two solutions that come to the top of my head, but I would love to learn more about the specifics in the neighborhood and brainstorm, sit down with the community members and talk about exactly what is happening, under what circumstances, and hear your ideas. You're the ones who live there. You see firsthand what is happening, and your voice and your opinion, that matters immensely to me, and I would love to brainstorm and to hear you out and to learn more about this.
Likewise, I have not had anyone specifically bring up this issue to me, so I would love to speak with you after this and learn more about it. But one thing I do know about flooding on the peninsula is, we've talked about, I've already referenced why it's happening, right? It's the sea level is rising, our rainstorms are getting worse, and when flooding happens, it's because water isn't flowing the way it's supposed to. So cleaning the swales or making sure that we have proper drainage along our roads is obviously very important, and we need to make sure that we are taking care of that and that that's being reported. I would also say that the reason that water is not flowing the right way is probably not because of a natural cause. It's probably because of something that we have done. It's probably a result of overdevelopment or new developments, maybe not necessarily overdevelopment, but just things that were done wrong, laws not being enforced. And we need to make sure, again, that the rules we have in place are being enforced, and that are and that we're tightening those up. So when it comes to stormwater management, I talked about how that bill is, or the rules were made over 30 years ago. How much, I don't know the number, but water's risen a lot in 30 plus years. So those need to be revised to keep up with the times. So I think it's a combination of mitigating what's here and also looking to the future. How do we prevent that from happening? We make sure that we have rules in place so that the building does not cause more problems in the future. Oh, one more thing. And lastly, we have some developments going up on the Mayo Peninsula. We also have over 600 infill lots. So these are lots that people are legally allowed to build on because they own them, and they should be able to build on those. Don't want to take that away. But when they do build on them, it's going to cause more problems. So we need to explore ways to incentivize not building so that people aren't losing anything. And that's something that when I'm on the council, I look forward to looking into and speaking with neighbors to figure out how we can incentivize not building so that we can protect our environment.
Thank you. This one is for budget question. This year we had a very large amount of money going into the county parks, specifically down here at Beverly Triton and Mayo Park. And we're questioning why so much money went in before our infrastructure was fixed. We have roads and drainage ditches and lots of things that need to be fixed before we encourage more traffic. So how would we help to make sure that the budget is spent on the needs before the wants.
The ones of who?
I'm sorry, the wants before the needs, sorry.
Yeah, so this is something that I've heard a lot on the trail from the peninsula. I think Beverly Triton comes to mind. And obviously, before the current administration, there was a much bigger plan to expand what was happening at Beverly Triton. And then the pandemic happened, and then everybody and their mother from all over the state were coming. And that wasn't great, but it was good for us because we had a place to go during the pandemic with our kids. But I live here, so I think it's okay. But it still did continue, and there still have been ways that's opened up to the community. And I will say that I think that one of the ways that we get people to care about the environment is creating opportunities for them to experience the environment. But I think that needs to be held in tension with making sure that our infrastructure is good enough to handle an influx of people. So, there are a bunch of roads that are going to be fixed in Maryland, state roads. One of those roads that's slated to be fixed is 214. The reason that is slated to be fixed is because the administration put money on the table to make sure that the state would choose it. So right now there's already a phase one in the works for that to happen. That's going to be between Muddy Creek and Lock Haven. And then there's going to be a second and a third phase in the coming years to fix the infrastructure. So while I agree that should have, the carts before the horse, so to speak, that is something the county is working towards. And I will make sure that continues past phase one. Because right now, phase 2 and phase 3 are just hypothetical. So we need to make sure that we have somebody on the council that will make sure that infrastructure is continued to be prioritized. One thing that I don't think, I'll just say this. There are some things that I know the community wants that I don't think are currently in those plans. And I look forward to listening to you and your wants and desires and needs and trying to get those things into the county's budget.
So wants before needs, necessities before niceties. I've heard that phrase as well. Yeah, the cart is definitely before the horse when we look at that project and the infrastructure. I've been driving down to Mayo Point what feels like the majority of my life. In high school, I volunteered with my high school class, and we used to use Delegate Bissett's house as a spot to, park our floats and decorate them and, get them ready for the South River High School homecoming. And I have essentially family that lives on Turkey Point, and these roads are dangerous. And the capacity is not where it needs to be for our residents, much less for, parks at the end of the road. We need to prioritize. I know that the people living on this peninsula have heard for years that your road improvements are coming. I think I'm not surprised if there's a certain amount of disbelief and distrust that promise is actually going to be delivered. I would probably feel the same way in your shoes. I think those are very valid feelings. But the improvement for the state side, that is coming, like Shawn was saying, up to that Lock Haven intersection. When we get to a certain point on 214, it becomes a county road. And it becomes a county issue as well. And so this is a priority for me. This goes back to being a quality of life issue. We have to get this infrastructure taken care of. Not just because of the parks, but because you deserve safe roads. You deserve roads that your fire and EMS and your police can get to you on. You deserve safe roads that your kids can be out driving on as teenagers. That intersection there at Muddy Creek and 214, I got a new driver. It terrifies me, the idea of him sitting there, because I know what has almost happened to me one too many times. So as your next county council person, I give you my word, this is a priority for me. I want you to be part of the conversation. I want you to talk to me about what you want to see done. What is going to be the best use of our tax dollars to make this a better situation and improve your quality of life?
this will be the last question, and then we'll have a quick follow-up, conclusion from each of you. The question is, are you endorsed by the Anne Arundel County Teachers Union? If so, how much influence will they have on your budget decisions?
I am not endorsed by the teachers union, so the union itself will not have any influence on my budget decisions. I've got 2 kids, they're in high school. They started in elementary school in Anne Arundel County. This is actually the first school system that my 2 boys went to school in for more than 1 year. This is the school system that I am a product of. My public speaking skills, my writing skills, my leadership skills, besides, having great example as parents, I had amazing teachers who to this day, I still credit for who I am and the successes that I've been able to have in my life. And these are teachers that they were teaching, working, and serving right up down the road from here. There is no way for me to properly express my debt of gratitude to them. So, that being said, the teachers union isn't going to have any sway over how I prioritize my budget. But education, taking care of our teachers, that matters to me. Through my husband's 20 years in Marine Corps service, as a commanding officer's spouse's wife, running those family readiness programs, one of my core principles has always been, if you take care of your people are going to take care of you. And so I do believe when we're looking at how to fund our schools, how to affect that portion of our budget, making the people a priority, the people who serve our kids, the people who are in front delivering that education on a day in, day out basis, those bus drivers who are driving our kids, that needs to be a priority. I consider it's the kid-facing portion of our education. That is something that I believe needs to become a priority in our funding. Anything that delivers that curriculum, the teacher, that curriculum that they're studying, those absolutely have to be funding priorities. And that's not because the teachers union told me so. That is because it's what I believe and it's who I am. And it's what I think is best for our community and our kids and our future.
I have also not been endorsed by the teachers union, so in that respect, they will not have an influence on me. However, I do, the TAC is a member organization. As I understand it, their role is to represent the teachers. Their role is to, similar to how I see my role with constituents, is to listen and then to act on that. So, while I have not had the experience of working with TAC, I do hope that is what they're doing, because that's what they're supposed to be doing, listening to their teachers and then making sure that legislation gets passed that benefits their teachers. So in that sense, I will certainly have my ear open to the teachers union to hear the issues. But I also will just have my ears open to teachers that live in the community. I'll also have my ears open to the school board. To the school administration. There's a lot of different places where we can hear information about how things are going. The parents, the kids themselves. One thing that I've done several times as I've been campaigning is we'll have meet and greets, and we'll meet, people will invite people to their house, and then we'll talk about what our vision is. And lots of time there's kids, teenagers, small children, and I always make a point to go to the kids and say, hey, what could make your schools better? I think that's a really important voice. So, in the sense that, what influence will TAC have on me because of the money they gave me? They won't have any influence because they haven't given me any money, right? But I am open to hearing the issues that they have heard. And I just, what Shannon said was just perfect. It was great. About how we need to be thinking about people, right? What I say in my campaign is putting people first. When you're talking, and that's complicated because how do you put everyone first? But in respect to schools, I mean, that's teachers and that's kids. How can we make sure that we're putting those people first? We need to make sure that our teachers are paid well. We need to make sure that they aren't working till midnight every night. We need to make sure that they have time at school to do their work. We need to make sure that students have an environment that is supportive of their needs. So we need to make sure, regardless of what the teachers union says, we need to make sure that our schools are supported.
Thank you so much. So that ends a council questions. So we're going to have 3 minutes for you just to wrap yourself up. Anything you forgot to say, you want to say, each get 3 minutes, and then we will move on to our state delegate. So Shawn, you're standing and you're up.
Yeah, so I feel like in the beginning and what I've said, you guys, you know where I stand. You know that I think the environment is really important. You know that I think schools are important. You know, I think we need to be thinking about where we're building. You know, those are the things that I think about every day because I have a family here. And you'll know that I'm going to be here listening, not just because of you, because I have a stake in it, right? We have to continue making our community a better place, and I have to for my family. One thing that I will say is right now we're doing the general development plans where we're listening to communities and making sure that we know how each area should be used for the future. And after that, there's going to be some major rezoning in the county. And depending on who's on the council, I don't mean just District 7, but depending on who's on the council, things could be rezoned in a way that we don't like. And I commit to making sure that I'm listening to the people that live in the communities so that things aren't upzoned, so that things aren't zoned commercially, so that houses aren't being built where they're not supposed to be. Something that I'm proud of is I have not taken a single dollar from any developer anywhere this entire campaign. No money that I've raised has come from a developer. And so when I'm looking at how we're going to zone, that's not going to be an influence on me. The people here, you're going to be the ones that influence me. So just to touch on what I started with, I was raised to show up, listen, roll up my sleeves, and get to work, and that's what I'm here for. So, thanks for being here.
So I just want to close. I'm going to circle back a little bit to the education. So that seemed to be a common, one of the questions that we received more often tonight than others. And just to review a few statistics that I think are important. So currently in Anne Arundel County, according to the last testing scores, only 6% of our high schoolers are proficient in algebra and geometry. And I said before, only a quarter of our 3rd through 5th graders are proficient in English and language arts. 31 buses didn't run today in Anne Arundel County. I think these are great examples of spots where, as mentioned before, we're funding some niceties before we've been funding and taking care of some of our necessities within Anne Arundel County. And this is one of those spots that leadership matters. These are hard decisions. You guys, there's no magic solutions to any of the problems that are facing our communities. There is nothing, the solutions that we're going to have to find are going to be hard fought. It's going to be done by us getting in a room together, talking things out, hearing different sides, putting partisan politics aside and focusing on creative solutions, common sense solutions, community-driven solutions. Whether you're talking about rezoning or development plans or protecting our bay, funding our schools, this is going to take a solid community effort, and it's going to take proven leadership skills to see us through that process. I do believe my entire life has prepared me to fulfill this need. And if you would like to find some proof, I do believe that the work I did to get our schools reopened is solid proof of that. I had to work across party lines with a lot of different opinions in order to first compromise for a 2-day hybrid solution in 2021. And then we moved successfully to a 4-day hybrid solution. And then we moved into 5 full days of in-person education, which is what our children deserve. And that was a process, and it took a lot of negotiating. It took a lot of talking to people, hearing different ideas, and problem solving together. And I think that's what it's going to take us through the next 4 years, 8 years, and into the future of Anne Arundel County. As your next county councilwoman, I will be your advocate. I will stand up for you. Nothing is more important to me than serving your needs. I will pour everything I have into this job, and I will serve you relentlessly. And so I ask for your support and your vote on November 8th so that together we can move this community forward and solve our problems that will help make all of our lives better. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here tonight.
Thank you so much to the council candidates, and hopefully you have time to stay afterwards. If there's a question you didn't get asked, you can ask them after. So we're going to go over to Ms. Courtney Buiniskis, who is the Democrat candidate for state delegate. 5 minutes to introduce yourself, and then we will start asking you questions.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Oops, don't mean to be too loud here. Thank you to everyone for coming tonight to listen to our thoughts and ideals and to hear us communicate. Thank you to the American Legion for hosting this, and thank you to our wonderful neighbors on the peninsula for doing this as well, so thank you. My name is Courtney Buiniskis, and like Ms. Leadbetter here, I am also your hometown candidate for the House of Delegates of District 30B. I'm a lifelong resident of Southern Anne Arundel County, and I know my community and I know their needs. I understand the people. After all, these people did mold and shape who I am today. I've attended all the local schools from Southern High School to University of Maryland. Excuse me for a minute, guys. This is my first forum, so I'm just a little nervous. I'm just going to admit it, so excuse me. So, I am a wife. I'm a mother, I'm an educator, and I'm a candidate. I'm also an adjunct professor at the local community college where I'm helping to transform lives every single day. I'm quite lucky that I love to teach. That being said, my love for teaching led me to my love of serving people. I have been involved in numerous charities and organizations to help transform lives for the better. I found myself helping a family during the pandemic that needed dire help. That being said, this is the very reason I am running today as a first-time candidate in my hometown district, to serve and truly help my community thrive. After trying numerous times to help the family that was in dire need, I could not get a return phone call. And a lot of people said to me, what can you do about it? What difference can you make? So I decided to run. That is a difference that I could make. As your future delegate, I will always return your phone call. I will follow up with you. You will see me in the community on a regular basis that I care so much about. I have been endorsed by over 13 different organizations, from the Sierra Club to Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, where I'm a proud member, and I'm also a proud teacher as well. From SEIU Local 500 to Pipe and Trade Fitters as well. I am an organizer for professors at the local community college where I fight for better rights and pay. Education is a high priority for me as your next delegate. And as your next delegate, you will be represented by an educator. Critical thinking, problem solving, and the ability to communicate are skills that I will bring to this delegate position. As your future delegate, I will use critical thinking and problem solving skills to enhance our district and to enhance to help the problems within our area. I have attended over 5 different town hall meetings, including neighbors on the peninsula, and over 7 meet and greets. To understand problems, we must listen. I am here today to listen to you. There's an empty chair beside me. I was hoping we both would be here to do the same. I'm here to answer questions from you lovely folks, and for a humble teacher and a South County girl, I'm doing my best to try to represent our area that needs representing so. This shows from the thousands of dollars raised for support within our own district. 94% of my donations are from our community, right here in our community. I think and I know that this speaks volumes. There are priorities that I deeply care about. Some of them are your Mayo and issue concerns right here. Health and safety, infrastructure, transportation, development, growth, community character, quality of life, all of these things that were already talked about. The Chesapeake Bay is so vital to me. I grew up on the Bay. I'm proud to live here. It's an honor to live on the Bay. Another priority of mine includes crime and gun safety, and I'm sure that you guys may have some questions for me as we go along with that, and also retaining local teachers. Teachers are a priority. We've had 2,100 teachers leave in Anne Arundel County alone. It is time to pay attention to this serious problem. And another priority of mine is providing effective constituent services. This is the very reason why I ran today, why I am running today, I should say. Now that being said, thank you for having me here today, and I know I'm going to answer lots of great questions. I look forward to answering your questions, and I'm also I am looking forward to serving you as your next delegate as well. So I'll go ahead and start with the question part. I'm just going to stand up since I'm the only one here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. So, how would you as delegate make the lives of veterans in South County and Anne Arundel County better? Would you support a tax benefit or either income or real property for veterans that choose to live here?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Thank you. I am already working with the Veterans Commission Affairs. I'm working with a gentleman named Mr. Church to bring awareness of how many veterans are actually down here. I'm learning that in all of the different areas. They need dire attention. What I would do is actually the first thing is to listen to see where the problem is and go from there. As a delegate, we control budgets. Again, veterans are a high priority for me. So of course I would help with budgets to support some of the programs. And what was the other part? A tax benefit, either income or real property for veterans that chose to live here. Absolutely, I would support that. Of course, we would need to see how it would be done. As your future delegate, there's lots of bills that I would have to look at and decide, would this work for our area, for veterans? But absolutely, veterans are on my mind. It's a high priority. There's lots of them that need services here. In fact, I attended a couple events here, right here at the American Legions to support the veterans.
Thank you. We've been waiting 30 plus years to clean up the bay. What can you do?
So as I said, that I'm very proud to live here and grow up on the bay. I know and I support the local watermen, local fishermen. I'm a Maryland crab-loving girl. I will say that. It's a multi-million-dollar industry that provides thousands of jobs that I would protect as a delegate. As a delegate, I would do everything in my power to preserve and protect the bay and its commodities for generations and not just running for office. As a candidate, I was endorsed by the Sierra Club. I care about the environment. I attended numerous meetings in here in Mayo and across the county. We have Senator Elfreth, who is chair of the Chesapeake Bay Commission. I would love to work with her as a delegate to see what more that I could do. The other thing is preserving the shorelines. You know, a lot of people say they want to save the bay, but how? I think we need to start with preserving the shorelines. All of the flooding that you're talking about, I don't live in Mayo, but I live in Shadyside. And if anybody knows where Shadyside is, like storms, I have to take a canoe to get out of my house. So I completely understand the importance of preserving our shorelines. It's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to figure out a way. I'm sure they've already done that, but it's the spending, it's the implementation, it's figuring out which shorelines to preserve first. And as the delegate, I would work with advocates, scientists, and even with the local community to hear their needs and concerns. As an educator, I always believe that it begins with listening and going from there. This is gonna go by fast if it's only me answering questions. So.
Okay. How would you address the current shortage of teachers, cafeteria workers, and bus drivers? What role does the state government play?
Thank you. I'm just flipping to my notes here, excuse me. As you see, as I said, I'm an educator. I understand 100% the frustrations in the classroom, being overworked and underpaid, pretty much. Children should benefit from our school for a better learning environment and safer environment. We must value our educators. As an educator, if I told you what I made, you guys would say something needs to be done about this. We are losing teachers at a very fast rate. I know that we talked about the Maryland Blueprint Plan, but I have to tell you, we have to start with competitive wages. One of the things in the Maryland Blueprint Plan, which needs to be funding, and we're going to figure out how to do that, we need to start with competitive wages. You have teachers leaving 2,100 this year because of the pay. And I want to stress, it is a lot to put up with. Even bus drivers, we have the problem of 31 buses not running today. That's because they're probably all working for Amazon. I hate to say that. You get paid, what is it, twice as much working for Amazon than driving a school bus. And even the requirement of a CDL license to drive our kids through the neighborhood and just to school. There are some things that truly need to be looked at. And we need to start valuing these educators, the support staff, the bus drivers. They all come with it. And this will only benefit, guess who? The children.
Thank you. As a state delegate, how would you support the food insecurities in Anne Arundel County?
So this is also another subject very near and dear to my heart. About once a month, I work with the Ralph Bunche Center for food drives. Then I go to the Franklin Methodist Church for food drives. Guys, I think that you need to realize that the families that I am seeing are more and more middle class. These are average people just trying to meet their food insecurities. The number one issue in southern Anne Arundel County that a social worker told me is food insecurity. Something needs to be done here. People are struggling just to make ends meet with their food. I'm sorry, remind me of the question again.
What would you do to support the food insecurity issues in Anne Arundel County?
Okay, thank you. And again, that comes down to budgeting, looking at different programs, what needs to be funded, listening to the community, who needs what and where. Churches during the pandemic saved a lot of people. We need to look at possibly some type of program to help them to connect to the community so they can pick up food for their families. Because it's getting harder and harder out there. And I don't know about you, I still go grocery shopping. I can't believe the price of chicken now. So.
How would you strengthen the Anne Arundel County implementation of the critical areas? You know, we've gotten the answer from the council side. Let's get the answer from the state delegate side. What would you do for our critical areas?
Thank you. And again, this is kind of like going back supporting efforts in the Chesapeake Bay, to be quite honest, preserving those shorelines that desperately need it. When I come down to Mayo, I have some friends down here. A lot of people live close to the water, and to me, the simple answer is to get those shorelines in place. To be careful that we're not having too much flooding on the roads, to start an infrastructure plan to figure out how we can control growth down here. And development, it does need to be controlled in a bit. I tell you, I was looking at the Mayo development plan, and I think you guys already reached your population limit 20 years before it was supposed to be reached. So obviously, there's a population growth down here, so we need to, I hate to use the word slow down growth, but it's something that we need to look at down here because it's causing a lot of water runoff. The more new homes we build, the more water runoff we have on our roads. Again, and that goes back to preserving the shorelines. Smart, reasonable development.
Okay. This is kind of a two-part question. It said, why should we fire the incumbent and hire you?
Oh, I can answer.
And what experience would you have to make an effective, positive voice as a delegate?
So I really get to answer it? Okay. No, please, yes. Why should we fire the incumbent and hire you? First of all, one of the very obvious reasons is I'm sitting up here by myself. For me, as an educator, anytime you want to listen to people, what do you have to do? Sit down and talk to the individual, listen to the person's needs. Like I said, I have been to 6 different town hall meetings, and he was not at one meeting. How can you understand what the constituents need if you are not hearing them? So that's one reason why it's time to go. Another reason why it's time to go is because of my experience alone. I simply could not get a return phone call for a family that was in desperate need. Thank goodness for Senator Alfred, who I eventually got a call back and helped the family. But that made me think, well, who's supposed to be doing what? And next thing I know, this led to him, everything was leading back to my incumbent, and I couldn't get an answer. So when people said, well, what are you going to do about it? That is when I decided to step in and run. And another reason is the sheer lack of constituent services. Look at your roads. Look at the tree trimming. Like I said, I live in Shadyside. It looks like somebody painted the road at nighttime on Friday night with no lights. That is our finished, completed project. I don't know about you folks, but I don't want patchwork. I want a resurfacing. I want South County to be resurfaced. I want to bring constituent services. I'm a loud voice in my neighborhood, at my college. I love to agitate. I'm an agitator, and I'm proud of that. But I love to agitate processes to get them moving. I'm not afraid to speak up and let people know that it is time for change. It's time for change. My delegate has been here 8 years, but he's not here tonight. And it is so important to listen to your constituents, especially when your sole job as a delegate is to listen to your constituents. Is this my other question right here?
It was kind of a combo.
It says Ms. Leadbetter. Just ignore that part?
No, sorry, it was.
What experience would you make? Okay, my experience. What experience do I have? As I told you already, I'm an adjunct professor at the community college. I've been teaching, I want to say adults, but kids sometimes, right? At the college for about 6 years. I'm a TFO senator over there. I represent all adjuncts. I speak up for their rights and pay. I'm also a community organizer in my own community, which is about 5 miles down the road. Numerous charities, numerous organizations where I'm stepping up, helping women. I'm an advocate for domestic violence. It is time to show that it's time for change, that I can bring all of these different experiences using problem-solving skills, critical thinking, all of those lovely things, and bring it over to the delegate seat to promote change, to partner with our lovely Senator Alfred, where I can bring home even more bacon for our district so she doesn't have to be out there all by herself doing that. Thank you.
And this was asked of the council, and it says to all, so we ask one of you. What are you going to do about the ever-increasing real estate tax and wastewater bills?
Thank you. So I own a home, and if I'm being quite honest, I haven't noticed huge raises in my taxes or my water. Again, as a delegate, this is more of a county position, if I'm not mistaken. I would, it would come down to budgets, supporting budgets, approving, not approving. We want to, again, have slow growth with taxes. I mean, we're in inflation right now, and people are struggling to pay their bills. My job is to try to keep it down as much as possible. I believe that Anne Arundel County has a AAA bond rating now, which means that taxes aren't going up too fast, if I'm not mistaken, if I read that bill correctly, the rating. So I would use reasonable decisions to vote on budgets or things that would affect our taxes. But I believe that's a little more on the county side than my side, to be quite honest.
I am running thin on delegate questions.
I'm the only one.
So is there any questions from the audience that we haven't touched upon? Anybody like to ask something? From the state
Don't
delegate?
be shy. What, say it again?
What do you teach? What subjects do you teach?
So, I teach,
Thank you. I teach communications, which is AKA public speaking. And then I teach workforce development and English as a second language, which is ELL, known as ELL now. Yes. Wouldn't trade my job for the world. I just, I used to be in public schools. I used to work in public schools, and there's a reason I'm in higher education now. I will say that. That's why it's so important to me to fight for teachers, because I don't think that the average person understands the type of immense pressure that these teachers and even students at some point are under.
I have one you could possibly answer. 214, we hear this all the time. It's a state road, it's a county road, parts of it are divided. It took 12 years to get the Muddy Creek Road intersection done. And it's still not quite right, if everybody here agrees with me. Every time we ask, we get, ask the council, ask the state delegate, ask the council, ask the state delegate. We're getting kind of tired of the back and forth. So, you know this road, you've been down this road. We are talking about some major supposed improvements coming. Why is this time going to be different, and is the Lock Haven intersection going to take less than 12 years?
Well, Michelle, right? Yes, Michelle. Well, I can't promise anything, right? Remember I told you that I was an agitator? I would say that definitely comes into play here with clear, open communication, working together with other officials, bipartisan, on a bipartisan level, to get this road done. It shouldn't come down to politics. It should come down to people working together. I would work with my county executive. I would work with my county council, senator, and other delegates to get this job done. It's not about placing blame back and forth. It's about what can we do for these individuals so I don't have to attend another meeting 12 years later to ask when is the road getting done. So for me, it's just agitation of the process. And I'm really good at that. I have to tell you, ask the college, they can't stand me for it. But it's just making sure that the communication is open to get this project done. Why is it taking 12 years? That's the first thing I would ask myself. I'm a local resident. I understand the traffic issues around here. And I think if you had someone working on a bipartisan level across the board, you could get more things done here.
That would be lovely.
well, I'm changed, remember that.
Scott, you had a question?
I was just going to ask, you were talking about how important teachers are, and we need to invest in them. Where do you propose, if they're underpaid, where do you propose, we're talking about high income taxes on real estate taxes and all this, where do we propose this money's gonna come from to compensate the teachers?
Well, obviously, we were talking about the Maryland Blueprint Plan earlier. You know, I can't sit here and tell you where the funding for that is going to come from 100% because it's still being worked out and talked about. The good thing about it is teachers entering will give them a competitive wage starting off at like $62,000. The funding for this is supposed to come from the Maryland Blueprint Plan. I don't want to get into something that I'm not too sure about, like where the funding would come from, but I am a believer in the Maryland Blueprint Plan. It needs to be funded. It needs to be paid attention to. Residents need to realize that teachers need to start off with competitive pay. When you have 2,100 teachers leave Anne Arundel County, you are feeling the effects. That's why 31 bus drivers were not driving today. People are leaving education left and right. I work in education. When it happened during the pandemic, I saw so many professors leave because of the pay. So, that being said, am I a firm believer of the Maryland Blueprint Plan? Excuse me, say that 3 times. Absolutely. Do we still need to work on the budgeting issues, figuring out where these funds are coming from? Absolutely, and I am willing to sit down and do the nitty-gritty of that.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I've lived down here all my life, and I lived at Lockhaven Road. I've been to all the meetings about the planning. Politicians, they're in agreement that they're gonna listen, they're gonna do their thing. But the bureaucrats have got their own mind made up. It's only a half a mile from Muddy Creek Road to Lockhaven Road. It says it's gonna cost $28 million to do that half. And then they want to put a circle in it. That's going to be the salvation to the whole deal, is what they claim. But they seem to be more concerned about the bicycle lanes and the pedestrian lanes when people can't get to work in the morning, or the fire trucks or ambulances can't get in to service people. And it just blows my mind that these bureaucrats, they're the ones who are in control. And I don't know how that's ever going to change. But it's a little disheartening when people can't get to work, the buses can't get to school, and the ambulances and the fire trucks can't get up and down the road. And I don't know what's gonna change, but after 12 years with the Muddy Creek Road incident, I don't have any much hope for anything, to tell you the truth, so. I don't know, what is the answer to all that? Somebody can take control of these bureaucrats? Because they're not listening to us.
Well, we can't be here all night with that answer, right? Well, I will tell you, you know, I'm from this area, and I know I keep saying that, and the reason I say that is because I feel like when you're from this town, you have a lot of pride, and you want to see things done. Again, I think it really comes down to communication. I can't sit here and promise you that I'm going to do this or that, or what has happened in the past. But I'm telling you who I am today, what I will do to help this process. I know we have a wonderful senator that would love a great partner in 30, and other individuals that want to work hard to get this alleviated. I mean, both of our county council candidates just said that right here. And I think that you have people that are from this area. I think that's why our election cycle is a little bit different. We are all local. We all understand. I was sign waving and saw that an ambulance couldn't even get down Mayo Road. I watched that. I said, this is a problem. People were stuck out in the middle of the thing. Something has to be done about this. So I hear your frustrations and I hear your concerns. In my power, sir, I would do everything I can to help with this incident on Mayo. I mean, it was at my own accord that I started attending meetings down here. I was like, this is a serious problem down here. Why is it lasting 12 years? So I really hope to bring my big mouth and my agitation to help the process a little bit.
What's the status of the Woodland Beach Fire Department moving from Woodland Beach down to 214 and 2?
Okay, you know what? I'm going to be honest and say I am not too sure of that answer about the fire department moving. That was the first time someone's ever asked me that, but I can get back to you on that. I can answer that question. If you meet with me after, I can look into that as well.
Well, let me say that the other day, a person came to my door and knocked on the door, and he was asking for, collection, and he seemed all legit, seriously. And so I asked him the same question. And he said something to the effect that when initially they were thinking about doing it, something about the sewer, and that if they put a sewer there, they would have to do sewers for everybody. Now, I don't know how much everybody is, but he says he doesn't think it's gonna be open anytime soon,
Okay.
which it should be, because it's a great place to have.
Real
it.
quick, Matt has a few answers to a couple of questions.
So this morning,
Matt,
what do you want?
be in shot.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Thank you. So this morning, a bill was introduced to the county council to locate the Woodland Beach Fire Department on land owned by the Board of Education near Central Middle, or Central Elementary and Central Special. So it would be on the south side of, what's the road? Stepney Lane.
Oh, okay.
So there's water there, there's sewer there, and there's a funding bill that was also just submitted today. So this will be before the council over the next 60 days.
So they're giving up the 214 and 2 area to move down a little bit more that way?
That's correct, because there's no city services on that southwest corner of 2 and 214.
All right.
But there are city services on the Board of Education property. So the Board of Education is ceding that property, or there's a resolution before the council, and the council is going to then say yes, and then there's a funding proposal, and this is going to be before the council over the next 60 days or so before they reach
Are they
agreement.
planning to still keep the firemen, the fire trucks and stuff we have on Lock Haven back there on, what is it, Stillwater or something?
Wastewater.
Waste, whatever it is.
We
back
have,
there?
I don't know.
That was supposed to be temporary, now it's all
Right.
the time, which I appreciate, because every time I hear that go down Lock Haven.
That
I'm
was
like,
one of the things that we and the neighbors worked on for years. We got the fire station there. They haven't told us what the plans are. As they said, this is gonna be years in the making.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, it's gonna be a couple of years to get through the appropriation process, and then you gotta construct and all those things.
Why can't they speed things up?
That's another good question.
It's bureaucracy and
Right.
12 years.
Also, Matt is on our roads committee, so if you have any updates on that, you could enlighten.
So on 214, there is no commitment to put a circle in at Lock Haven Drive.
That's not what I heard.
There's no commitment.
That would be great,
The
circle
only-
or.
The only commitment is some type of
Traffic light.
traffic control device. It could be a traffic light, it could be a circle, and the state is gonna be holding a public meeting on this in the next couple of months. And so you should come to the meeting and say, I don't want a circle. But there's no commitment, and let me just say, Scott was in some of these meetings, several of you were in the meetings that we had to negotiate this between the county and the state. And so what's the first phase, I think Shawn got it mostly right, the first phase from Muddy Creek is gonna go down to Camp Letts, so that there's 3 lanes and people can get into the school there and at Summit School. They're also adding 10-foot shoulders. They're not just for bikes and pedestrians, they're for fire turnaround and fire access.
Yeah.
So, and they also have to deal with the drainage issues. And the county has asked that the state include the costs for burying the power lines along that stretch of lane, along that stretch of road. These are all things that your community associations all negotiated with the state and the county, 2-3 years ago, Scott? And as Shawn said, this is happening because the county, Mr. Pittman, forward funded, used county funds to jump this into the top of the state roads queue. So we, in this county, have 6 of the top 10 roads projects in the state. Route 2, Route 3, Route 214, and 3 others. So there are 150 roads projects in the state, and we have 6 of the top 10 because this county has forward funded these projects. So, and how can we get a left turn? This is another question you asked. How can we get a left turn on Muddy Creek Road? We have asked the state that multiple times, and here's what they've told us. That there are very clear guidelines about what, for volume, for how much traffic and how many left turns would need to be made there to change the light. It's
Not
just
being met, or are they saying?
not even close. They're saying we're not even close to coming to the volume that they need to install that left turn light.
They weren't there rush hour today.
That would be another question.
Intersections.
Apparently, there are some things they have to count, and they haven't found enough things to count to, whether it's accidents or volume. I don't like it either. I bike through there all the time. It's dangerous. I'm totally with you on that, and it's still, the state just said, it's not going to be happening, because we're not even close to meeting the thresholds. So those are the three. So that's Woodland Beach, Muddy Creek left turn, Lock Haven traffic control, and the phase 1 of the 214 project. Phase 2 is going to be from Camp Letts down to Ponder, and it's going to again add shoulders. It's going to take care of the drainage issue on Lake 214, and it's going to straighten out a couple of intersections, and then and that'll be probably 2025 to 2028. And then the last phase is going to be from Ponder down to Beverly, and that'll be probably 2028 to 2030 or so. So, and someone said they would advocate that the county continue to fund these things, and yes, we would hope that the county would continue to fund them.
Thank you for that update. Any other questions from anybody? Anybody? Thoughts and questions for everybody? Well, do you have any things more you can tell us about what project you are looking at helping to get through that it should be important to all residents in this area?
Well, that's an easy question. Obviously, I live in Cedarhurst. I live 1 block from the bay. Is the Chesapeake Bay. It's the preservation of our shorelines. You guys are affected down here as well. I mean, we live, what, 3 miles? Well, no, about 8 miles apart. That's a huge project for me. As I said, I would work with our wonderful chair on the Commission of the Chesapeake Bay, and I would work with other individuals to start making this happen. Another cause that is near and dear to my heart is education. Like I said, it really needs to be looked at. We need to figure out why we're losing so many teachers, support staff, bus drivers. Another priority of mine is transportation in southern Anne Arundel County. We have a lot of senior citizens. They can't get groceries delivered. There is a bus, but you have to call ahead of time. A lot of people don't know about it. That's another one of mine, constituent services. Like I said, we need constituent services bad in southern Anne Arundel County. It is the very reason that I ran, because it started with a phone call that would not be returned for a family that was in dire need. Okay, just to give you a point, when I took her to the hospital, she was there for 2.5 months, and I was left with a person who was completely handicapped, who couldn't even shower or feed himself. And it made me realize the lack of services for someone who is over the age of 18. What can we do for this person? And after I started reaching out to every organization and hearing no, 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 it made me think, what can I do so this does not happen to anyone else? I don't know if you guys ever have been next to anyone that hasn't showered in weeks because they couldn't give themselves a shower. It was really eye-opening to all of the handicapped people that are in southern Anne Arundel County, how they get their food, how they have transportation. So that being said, this is from the heart why I'm running. I decided to step up because someone needed to. The people in my community are responding to me quite well. I go to every event to let individuals know that I care. You have someone that is from here. I'm not running for any selfish reasons at all. I'm running as an educator, a wife, a mother, to let all of you know that we can actually have great representation down here. I honestly believe that people forgot what it is in the delegate position because it's been so long without great representation. So I ask all of you that when it comes to November the 8th, that you make the right choice and vote for somebody that's gonna make a change. I've already made a loud splash with my presence down in Southern Anne Arundel County, and it's not easy sometimes. It's a sacrifice, but I'm willing to do it to show all of my lovely constituents, and even my students, and even my son, even my lovely husband, that change can come and it can occur. So I thank you for everyone for listening to me tonight. I hope that I got to answer all of your questions. And if there's something that I don't know, please, I will follow up with you and get back to you. But I am really looking forward to serving you all in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since we don't have any more questions, wait, we have, go ahead.
What's happening with the 16 cluster homes on Sutter's property next to Peninsula Farms are behind it?
You said
The Sept property. Matt Holden, it's probably more of a county question, so Matt has some updates on that as well.
Is this in Mayo again? Okay.
Right next door.
Right next door.
Right.
Right there,
I
literally.
mean, it's out that door, right
Turn on
there.
that.
Yeah.
Remember live streaming?
So, yes,
Yeah,
thank
back
you.
up.
Oh, yes, thank you. Because you need a bigger picture of my bigger middle. That's much better. This was a development application that was submitted 10 or 15 years ago. And it now calls for 16 homes. Our concerns have to do, we can't stop it. It's already been submitted, and it gets evaluated according to the regulations that were in place at the time it was submitted. So today's stormwater regulations don't apply. Today's forest preservation don't apply. And so the whole question of how long do we grandfather permits is one that is on our minds, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. There are going to be 16 homes. There are two big questions that we're pushing the county on. One is access to the property. They are right now proposing access to the property off of 214 between the Legion and Peninsula Farms. So there's about 10 feet of space there, and that's the proposed road to access the property here. The other concern we have is that they're intending to keep none of the stormwater on the sites, on the home sites. Marie, do you want to brief on this?
No.
Oh, okay. Marie and I have been working on this together. Today's code requires them to keep as much stormwater on the property as you can. Rain barrels and rain gardens and other things. When they submitted this, their intention was to run all the stormwater off the 16 lots and into a holding pond, which is going to be right out there at 214, and to go under 214 and into Bare Neck Creek. We're trying to say to the county, we have to do better than that. The other thing is they're bringing in 20 tons of fill dirt to build these 16 homes up. And that's one of the reasons that all the stormwater is going to run off. Other concern about stormwater is they're planning bioswales, which are intended to clean the stormwater before it reaches the retention pond. Well, the bioswales only work for the summer months, okay? The plants go to sleep in the wintertime. And by the way, when do we get our big storms? We get our big storms in the fall and in the winter. And so the bioswale is going to be ineffective, and that water is going to sit in the holding pond, run under 214. So we're working with the state, trying to persuade the state on the access road to 214, particularly since the state's coming through here in 3 or 4 years to improve the whole strip of road here. And then we're working with the county on stormwater matters. So yes, one other thing. I didn't, when I was talking about 214, I neglected to mention the role that Sarah Elfreth has played in getting our priorities onto the state list and onto the state list of priorities. And we're there because Stewart's funded it, and you've been an incredible advocate for the work that we're looking for. Yes, ma'am.
How possibly on that dirt road that goes up to the farm, I guess, with the Legion here and Peninsula there, 16 houses. What kind of road is going to be built to put them on 214? I heard that they had an idea to go through Selby, but the people voted it down. So they must have.
Well, we heard that there was some consultation with the community years ago, and so we're hoping that the state will revisit that. You know, given the plans to change 214 anyway, we're hoping that the state will come up with a better solution. So, and it may be coming in through 8th Avenue, I don't know, but yeah, that's a concern. On this topic?
Next topic, another topic completely, but sort of on the same, but this is for anybody who wants to answer. So I'm hearing a lot of discussion about building, you know, development, and a lot of talk about how it's affecting the water. But another area that's being impacted is deer and coyotes. So as we're developing these houses, we're running the deer out, and the deer are overrunning current developments, which are running out the road, which is causing risks to drivers. And then with the more deer population we're getting down here, the more coyote population we're getting down here. What are we doing in this area to promote deer management and coyote management?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing that I'm aware of. Can you speak to that?
I can speak a little bit to that. The issue Shawn and I just both looked at each other and we were like, oh, we've talked to some of our farming community about the issue with the deer in particular, because for the farming community, the deer is a huge issue because it ravages their crops. Their crops are that's their way of life. That's how they pay their bills. This is a huge economic issue for them. And obviously in our suburbs, this is a safety issue. You're talking about traffic accidents. I mean, in deer, they also carry,
Lyme
parasites,
disease, right.
Lyme disease.
Yep.
These are all serious health issues as well. I know that in the past there was an organized hunt done down in the park areas, and that was for urban type of hunting. You had to have a permit, and it wasn't just show up and go. It was very controlled. That being said, one of the feedbacks I did hear when I've been out in the community talking to residents is that they didn't feel like there was a lot of notice that was going on, meaning that participation might have been able to be higher if there was more input with the community to say, hey, this is going on. If you're interested, this is what you have to do to participate. Obviously, higher levels of participation, that drives interest, that may drive how often we're able to do it, and obviously the more participation, the more control is also happening. I hope that answers a little bit of your question.
I mean, hunting licenses are at an all-time low. I mean, is there any plan at all to incentivize people to fill their, not just kill deer, but fill their freezers with the venison? What can we do to incentivize people to let them know that venison is a healthy option? And I know that if I take deer to the butcher in Harwood, he'll donate it. So what are we doing to get that venison here with all this food insecurity?
I can tell that Courtney is chomping, right? I feel like I don't want to monopolize the mic. I just want to make sure I'm being fair.
I was kind of, no, it's okay. I know a little bit, like, pieces of it too. I know that when I was talking to the Farm Bureau, we have like is it DNR, am I saying that right? Yes. They have the deer management program. And again, I think that's communication in your community and your neighborhood, letting these butchers know where to donate the food, letting the neighborhood know, such as food banks. We have venison, like the food bank that I work at, I do believe that they accept all types of food, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, again, it's just communication, lining up with the DNR, lining up with residents, all of this extra deer meat. I know that you're a hunter, obviously, from what you're asking, but I really think it's just, again, forming relationships to get the word out, to let the residents know, hey, we have this extra deer meat, let's meet some food insecurities. because I know some good ground deer is just as good as hamburger, right?
Oh, it
Absolutely.
is.
Yes.
And I mean, I was just talking to the butcher in Harwood, and he was like, you know, bring me all the deer you can, because I give it to the community. So, and I'm hearing, you know, that we've got food insecurities down here, so how can we get that meat here? You know, how can we get that to our community?
And I just wanted to add one more thing. So I mean, I think the DNR has these special days throughout the year when people can hunt with on certain areas, on public areas or county areas. We need to, I think we need to expand the days that happens. But another thing that I've heard on the campaign trail is all the farmers. I mean, all the farmers that farm crops. I mean, this is a big issue. They lose like 20% of their crops, which is, you know, a lot of money. I've also talked to hunters that don't know where, like they're like, I have to drive so far to hunt. And I'm like, there's a farmer that needs someone to hunt, because the farmer says, I can't afford to, I don't have time to worry about getting people to come hunt my property. I mean, they could hunt every chance they had, but I don't have time to set that up. One idea that I have is connecting farmers with hunters. We have, you know, it's like when you're driving on the road and you see on the highway, you see a big truck with like logs in the back driving one way, and then you see another truck driving the other way with big logs in the back, and you're like, you could have talked, right? I think we can do the same thing, connecting hunters, and I think we could probably use technology to create a system to connect.
There's a whole
farmers with
Maryland bow hunter society, and if you're talking about farmland, I think bows would probably be the safest way to hunt that land.
One thing I think that would be a great opportunity for our county and our state to also partner on is that when talking to a lot of farmers, one of their concerns about letting hunters onto their property to do the hunting is liability. And so a great way that we can work together from the county council level through to the state delegates and with our senators as well is making sure that we do some sort of liability protection for the farmers, because that's going to make them more willing to give you that invitation to come to their land and take care of these, you know, these nuisance animals for them. But when they're worried about a lawsuit that shuts down their livelihood, their family business, that's a huge risk to take. And so I do look forward to, you know, partnering together to see what we can do to solve, you know, connect those dots and solve that problem.
Okay, we are at 10 of 9, so I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. You know, Mayo always shows up. And I want to thank the candidates. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for you all working together, and it has been awesome. You're very courteous to each other. It's been a lovely evening. So if you have any questions that you think of later and you think, I wish I had asked that, go ahead and post them to the neighbors, and we will make sure they get to the candidates and you get some of your questions answered before you know, November 8th. So remember, get out and vote. And everybody's flyers, the candidates' contact information and flyers are on the back table. Also, just a reminder, on October 6th, we will be having the candidate forum for the county executive and for the Senate race at the library in Edgewater. So we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you all so much.
It's all my fault. Only about 10 minutes, so there's not a whole lot of meetings. That's already